Hi, everybody. It's A.J. Heightman coming to you from Southern California, and we have an esteemed crowd from New Orleans that's joined us as we talk about the second season of Nightwatch. We're all excited to see it come back on, and everything that I've heard is there's been a tremendous number of unique cases that have been filmed, and probably the first question is really that, and I don't know who to direct it to, I could probably direct this one to Titus, is that you're on these calls and you don't even know what's going to end up on the show. Does that put any pressure on you, knowing that it could be any one of your calls?
No, we don't. It's not pressure. We just treat every call the same. I mean, pretty much what you see is what you get. When Dan and I go on the call, I mean, we just do it. So it's to a point now we just use that the cameras is not even there. I mean, so it's all about patient care. So it's about, us taking care of the patient, doing assessments, and Dan doing his thing, make sure, and I'm making sure that they get to the hospital safely. But there's no pressure at all.
And I've ridden it with your crews, and I find every crew to be exceptional. I'm not just saying that because we're online here, but I've never been on a bad call there. I've always been on a lot of interesting calls, and so that might be the next question, maybe for Holly, is what's it like to serve in a system that serves such a diverse population of both citizens and visitors to New Orleans? You really get all different kinds of views on the show. What's it like to serve in that kind of a system?
I think it keeps things really interesting, that you never know what type of personality you're about to come across from, our normal residents of the city that are already crazy, because we're all crazy, or, just a visitor from some off-the-wall place. So it really keeps things very interesting, always having a diverse crowd around.
And Dan, I see you sitting there with your yellow shirt on. What's the experience been like for you on Nightwatch?
Once in a lifetime, AJ. I'm blessed to work with the crew that I work with. Of course, I mean primarily the four sitting on the other computer, as well as our chief in the other screen. That gave me the opportunity, but very, very blessed. It's been a very, very interesting opportunity to do what we do on camera.
Yeah, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you on behalf of the EMS population as well as the citizens for allowing us into the units and really letting us get a peek into what EMS is really about. And on that, I think maybe for Nick, the fact that you all have a good clinical approach to EMS, what do you really attribute that to? I mean, you use state-of-the-art equipment, you use mechanical CPR, you're right on top of everything, and everybody seems so clinically sharp. What do you really attribute that to?
I guess more of a trial by fire. We have a really good FTO process. People that are weak don't normally make it through, or if they need some more training, it happens that way. And, I mean, we run a high call volume service, so you're either going to sink or swim really quick. But, luckily there's a lot of people to help out if you need it. So we're a pretty tight family, and we do what we need to make everybody safe.
I think what's been impressive for me is that your assessment approaches are really good. Your ability to converse with the patient in their own kind of language and lingo, and have them reach up and say, "I love your tattoos," or "I love you guys." I mean, all of those types are, being on Bourbon Street many times, I realized that some of those patients are way off the deep end. And Keely, you've joined us, so you come on many of the calls and many of the scenes to kind of back up and help the crews. What's the experience been like for you?
What's the experience been like for you? You coming on our calls and helping us on scene?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like for you?
I love going on scene with these guys. They keep me entertained. They're great medics. I try and help them out any way that they need help, do whatever they need done. Outside of that, I just kind of stay back and not step on toes.
I think what I see all the time is, as far as supervision is concerned, you come on the scene and the crews pretty much have it under control, and then some of the dialogue when you're explaining the call, I think, really helps the audience understand what's going on. So I think that's really helpful. Chief, Carl, we have you online. What's the experience been like for you? Because I know you have to go through all the political hurdles and have to get approvals and all that other stuff. What challenges did the show place on you, Carl?
Well, first of all, thanks for hosting this, AJ, and thanks to the JEMS community for watching this. Really appreciate the support and the process. As far as the headaches, man, I can tell you, I like to say it was headache free, but it hasn't been just from some of the political hurdles and HIPAA issues and things of that nature. There's a lot of medical legal aspects that go on. As far as the patient care and treatment, that's the least of our worries. I mean, we have top-notch medics. That's what these guys, and I think they'll reiterate the fact while these guys are on camera, every one of the medics behind the scenes does the exact same thing that works in our rig. And as you alluded to, the greatest thing that they are able to do and see is a lot of calls, a lot of call volume. That's what makes them good at their assessment components. And, you know, I'd put them up against just about anyone around. And that's why we invite a lot of people to come down, ride with us, and truly see what it is. And they all leave with a great experience and new friends, because exactly what Titus said, what you see is what you get. These guys are really great people.
Yeah, and my hat's off to A&E, because I've talked to Dr. Eller, and I know that he doesn't always see exactly everything that's going to go on. He's totally confident in all of these folks that are kind of our stars of the show, as well as all the other crews that are interfacing. And so, you know, I think he's confident that what you see is what you're going to get, and you're not going to see any bad stuff. So for the viewing audience, you have to understand that they go on calls and they don't know what's going to end up on the show. So you're truly seeing a snapshot of what goes on at New Orleans EMS. So my hat's really off to you. I do have a question, and I don't know who really wants to answer this, but the show really portrays a great relationship between New Orleans EMS, New Orleans Fire, and New Orleans PD. And I've been there, so I know from my own impression that it's amazing. I've never been in a system where the fire department uses, you know, little battery-operated BP things and hands you a blood pressure and a pulse. So what do you attribute that to? It's fully an integrated system. Is it a lot of fun working in a system like that? Because it doesn't happen everywhere.
I think it makes it easier on all of us to have that strong relationship. We can, you know, go on a call, and if fire is there, we can kind of, you know, walk in a little easier, seeing them and knowing we'll have a blood pressure, we'll probably have a pulse ox, they're on oxygen if they need it, they're being ventilated if they need it, CPR is effective if it's required. So having that, you know, tight-knit relationship is trust. Same with the police department. You know, we rely on them to keep us safe while we keep everyone else safe, and vice versa. If they need us, they don't hesitate to call because they know that they're going to get the best. So having that tight-knit relationship, I think, is a wonderful thing. And for services that don't have that, I kind of feel bad for them, because I don't think we could do it any other way.
Yeah, and you know, you guys, Nick, Titus, you've all been traveling around the country, and do people comment about that? Because in some systems, they don't even get a police response on their calls, or they don't get a fire assist. Have people commented on it?
A lot of us have worked for different services, so we've kind of experienced that. I know me personally, where I come from, I mean, you could possibly rely on police, but fire was never there. I mean, you have volunteer fire guys, maybe 17 years old, that have never seen anything before, and that's great in a training service or something like that. But when you're stuck in an ambulance with one guy that doesn't know what he's doing, it can get challenging. But we've all experienced different things, and you know, I've never experienced anything negative, so I really can't speak for that. But I've heard some horror stories for sure.
Well, I mean, for all of you, you came to EMS today. You spent a lot of time meeting with people. Everybody wanted to meet you. I thought it was great. But the thing that really impressed me is the people brought their kids. Their kids liked the show, and their kids wanted to meet you. And you know, I just watched all of you just be so great with those kids. So what did that feel like to feel like you know, you were really a role model there? Dan, maybe you want to take that.
I think that's something that's new, at least new to me, because I know I've talked to this with Holly before. I know I've talked to it with Titus because we spend a lot of time in the truck. But you know, a lot of people tell us that kids are looking up to us now, which is funny because, I mean, Holly's probably the youngest, but I know Keely probably grew up watching Emergency, and I grew up watching it as a kid, reruns obviously. But I remember watching it, and other than that, that was the only show that I can liken to paramedics in some sort. But you always grew up here, and I want to be a doctor, I want to be a fireman, but you never heard people saying that they wanted to be a paramedic. And to hear kids say that, I think is like, kind of makes you feel like we're sort of doing something special right now.
Yeah, and for the other group that's on the other side of the city that's watching here, you know, I really think that in some respects I like the show better than Emergency. It's a better version now because you see people die. You see people that are shot. I mean, Jim Page used to say that the #1 thing that they wanted on Emergency is they didn't want to show a lot of blood, guts, and gore, and hardly anybody ever died. So I think the real picture is pretty refreshing, even for young kids to understand that if they want to get involved in this, there's a lot of stress with it. So, you know, Titus or Nick, do you want to comment on that?
That'd be good for Keely. What's the question that you want to ask, AJ? We're going to give it to Keely.
Well, I mean, the question really is that the show shows more reality. It shows gunshot victims. It shows people who are dying. It shows suicides. That's real EMS, and I think that that's healthy for people to see because they don't have the false impression that everything is just Johnny and Roy. You know, it's Nick, Keely, Dan. You know, everybody going on diverse calls. Some good, some bad, some pretty ugly.
I think it's good that people get to see what we actually do as EMTs and paramedics. You know, non-reality shows kind of paint the wrong picture. Honestly, I mean, they really don't paint us in a good light, or people not so much where people understand what we do. Whereas Nightwatch, everybody knows what we do now.
And it's not a fake. You know, it's not under false pretenses. It's not just the blood and the guts and, you know, everybody's dying or everyone lives. It's the one, you know, it's the truth. You know, if someone passes, we did everything we could, but unfortunately they passed. And then if someone had a great outcome, then we can share that with you. But they kept it 100, like Dan likes to say. They kept it 100.
I think that we're real people also. You know, we make mistakes. We're not perfect. We have emotions, and I think the show gets that out there too. So.
Yeah, and you know, it's different than Johnny and Roy. They sat around the kitchen quite a bit at Station 51, and you guys don't get to sit around the kitchen. You're just going balls to the wall, going to call after call after call. So, Chief, we're not advocating that they get kitchens like that, but you know, I think that the public sees that you're really busy. And I guess for the Chief, tell me the status of the station that I've been waiting so long for. Is the new headquarters almost ready?
Yeah, actually, significant completion is going to be done at the end of this month, from what we're being told. And we're hopefully going to move in. They have about a 45-day window to punch out any of the things that may have been missed on the walkthrough that will happen at the end of the month. But they're committing to us that they'll probably knock that out within 14 days. So hopefully we'll start moving in by mid-November and be in place. I think it's the final culmination for us as an EMS service from Katrina. I mean, these guys, you know, again, I say this time and time again, my hat's off to them. I mean, even us as an admin, we come into to work in the trailers. You know, most people have a concrete home, place to hang a hat, locker rooms, etc. These guys are running one of the highest UHUs in the country. There is no break. The show is very real. The station, I was laughing because I think that I wish I could give them a break so that they can catch more reports, decompress, talk with each other. And you see some of that in the show, but it's usually the 5 minutes in between writing a run report at the hospital. But, you know, hopefully soon we'll have that final piece of the puzzle that's going to bring us together and complete our rebuilding and recovery process from Katrina.
So the new headquarters isn't going to be under the bridge anymore?
Well, actually, it's close to being under a bridge or a overpass. So it's kind of ironic, but it's actually in a great central location. It'll have some great jump-off points throughout the city. But we stood strong and fought for a lot of things that these guys deserve, like locker rooms and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Have a gym so that they can go work out and get that stress out of them. You know, shoreline parking, pressure wash system on the for the ambulance. I mean, little things like that would make their job easier is all we're trying to do, because they have it hard enough concentrating on these calls. Then they have to worry about minor stuff. So.
It's been a decade waiting for it. It's long overdue, and I'm so happy. you know, we can't talk about how nice it's going to be because then everybody's going to want to move to New Orleans and work in New Orleans. So maybe that's a good recruiting pitch for us as well. So, you know, you guys tell me a little bit about some of the calls that actually you were on that were being filmed so we can see, you know, I kind of want to see, you know, I heard there were some really exciting calls. People came back, people resuscitated. Were there any calls that you're hoping appears on the series this time?
I could say that I'm pretty sure that Carl's probably might be the only person that's seen what's going to be on the show. We don't see anything until the show comes out, so we have no idea what they're going to show, believe it or not.
Well, I'm pretty sure that there were going to be some bizarre patients because there's always bizarre patients, right?
Pretty much every night. So, you know, it is what it is. It's New Orleans, so it's always going to be something fun and interesting. But, yeah, we don't know what's going to be on the show, though.
The most exciting part is actually, I think for me and Nick, is seeing what Dan and Titus did, and then vice versa, because we kind of have an idea of what might be there because we ran the calls, but we have no idea what they did, which is, you know, super exciting to see that. Same with Keely. You know, she goes on all the crazy calls that we don't get to go on, so it's always amazing to see what everyone else did.
So do you guys get together when the show comes on and just kind of chuckle, laugh, and critique?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what, AJ, it's amazing though. Like when the show first came on, appeared, a lot of people like to talk about, you know, the calls, you know, the gunshots and the seizure calls and things like that, which is great. But we get so many tons of emails and Twitter messages and Facebook about us just being in a truck, like as a family. I mean, let people have to understand that we are friends. We are a tight-knit group of friends. So what you see in us when we do in the truck is not staged. It's 100% real. Like, you know, us clowning each other. Sometimes we have to pull it back because we forget that there's a camera. So, you know, so a lot of times, you know, Dan is calling me fat, which, you know, I slimmed up a few pounds this season, so check out for that. But we get a lot of tons of love from the fans out there, and I just think it's amazing that it goes from the calls, like the first 3 or 4 shows that people want to know about the gun shootings, and then when they get to the 6th and 7th show, they want to know about Holly's tattoos, or, you know, Nick doing his thing, or Dan bikini. What that is?
Root suit.
Yeah, root suit.
What is a root
suit? So it's like just different things we talk about in the truck that a lot of people want to know about. But I just want to tell everybody in JEMS family that it's 100% real. Those conversations are not staged. That's just us just being ourselves and talking, and I think that's one thing that makes the show so special.
So, you know, and I think, you know, some of my favorite parts is when you guys are cleaning up the truck or at the back doors and kind of reminiscing or feeling bad about the way a call went, because that's really EMS, and I think people see, they know you're real people, they love you for what they see on the show, but that's just the raw side of it that I think the public doesn't realize, that we all have sensitivities, you know, we all have concern, we all have kids or whatever it happens to be, and we all have to go home and try and go to sleep after this. So, you know, I think that's important. With that in mind, somebody walk me through what happens when the A&E crew or the film crew comes to film one of these. You know, you hide them in the back, they get to the scene, how do they stay out of the films? You know, they have part of your family now too, right?
It pretty much became like a, you know, routine, just like anything else we do. They came on shift, you know, made sure the cameras were still good, tight in place, and, you know, that they were where they needed to be. And then, you know, everybody hopped in, and we would go to calls, and they would get out with us. If, you know, we went inside of a home, we would try to, you know, first of all, make sure everyone was okay, but ask them, you know, if the film crew could come inside. And luckily, by the 2nd season, so many people in the city saw the show, and they knew who we were. So they, you know, they would either allow us in or make it very clear that they didn't want them to come in. But, you know, either way, they'd come in or not, and film it, and then they just, you know, one cameraman in the back with a producer, and we'd roll.
Yeah, and lots of little cameras around you, so you're kind of framed by cameras. And I think the filming and the way they click down the clock has been really an attractive part of the show. Now, let's take it another step, because stress is really high in EMS right now. The EMS Today last year, and we're following through at this EMS Today, where we're bringing in all kinds of experts to talk about the stress and alcoholism and all those things. How do you guys unwind after a tough shift or after a tough couple of shifts?
Or a tough call.
Let's go to Dan. You're sitting there.
Who's gonna go to Dan?
I don't see you with a rum and coke, although I wish I had one for you. But how do you unwind?
For me, I do work a lot, but my wife and I love to travel. So for me, it's going out of town. We spend a lot of time going to different states and camp, NASCAR races and concerts and things like that. And so when I'm out of town 4, 5, 6 days, and then when I come back, we work. But that's what we do. My wife and I just travel. That's our primary means of debriefing.
And Titus, other than training your 8-month-old son to be a linebacker for the Saints, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what, I just like to spend time with my family. I mean, just spend time with my son. We work so much, you know, these 12-hour days. Sometimes we go up to, you know, as far as 16-hour days. So I do like to watch football or just, you know, just spend time with him. You know, it was a blessing. I had a son later in life, and if I knew it was going to be this good, I'd have had him 20 years ago, you know. So, you know, just being there for him and, like, you know, just trying to see the little things, like his first steps, you know, his first crawl. So everything is new to me. So this is my first child. So you say his first words, and I just think, you know, I'll brag on that for 2 weeks because I've never seen that before. I never experienced it.
Good. How about you, Nick?
First off, I leave it at work. So that's the biggest thing.
Good for you.
I leave, I don't think about it. I go home, play with my wife, play with my dogs, have a good time, travel, do everything I can, and do everything that everybody else does. But I make sure that if something's egging me, I talk about it. You know, if it ever does, with my coworkers or my wife is a good listener and that kind of thing. But mainly, whatever happens on the shift, I make sure I brush it off when I get in my truck and I drive home.
Well, I think it's important that, you know, just as we see on the show, your partners, you really talk about calls. You talk about what bothers you. You bust each other's chops. You have some fun. You joke around beginning, middle shift, end of shift, and that's really important. And I trust that you'd all tell each other if something was bothering you. Holly, how do you unwind?
Actually, me and Nick are so much the same because I do the exact same thing, you know, and it's one of the things I preach on to new people that come to EMS is that if you take this stuff home with you, you're not going to survive in EMS. You're just not going to last very long. You have to walk away every day knowing that you did your absolute best. If not, it's just going to eat you up inside. So, I mean, I leave it at the door.
Yeah, and Keely, sometimes you have triple the stress because you got to go to triple the number of bad calls. So how do you cope with it?
Triple the number of bad calls. How do you deal with it?
We gave Keely the cheaper seat in the back.
Jazz music and a good dinner. Really, that's how I usually unwind. And to back up what they say, you definitely have to have someone to talk to. There's got to be an outlet outside of work, I think, too. You try not to put too much on your family, but you know it doesn't necessarily have to be your family that you have an outlet. It could be a counselor or a therapist, you know, and you can't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I mean, this job could literally kill you. And we see it every day. We see a lot of medics every day that just can't handle it, not necessarily here, but just in general. And you have to learn how to deal with the stress. You have to talk to someone about it and get it out. You can't keep it inside. You can't let it will eat you alive if you do.
There's actually a really great organization right now that's bringing so much awareness to suicide rates in PTSD and first responders. And I would urge anybody at any time if they need to talk to someone to go to look up hashtag I've Got Your Back 911 or go to I'veGotYourBack911.com. They will be there for you. They will help you through it. They are definitely an open ear. So utilize those around you.
Yeah, and there's another group called the Code Green Initiative, and they're doing great things as well. If you read this month's GEMS, I'm not selfishly plugging it, only that I'm really proud that this month's issue has a tremendous survey and results that were done by 7 of your colleagues, and they thought they'd get 500 responses, and they got 4,000. And the results were extremely important for everybody to read, that there's contemplating suicide or being overstressed. And the number one reason that they feel this way is they feel that their coworkers will not support them if they say they need help, or they feel their management won't support them, or they have no employee assistance program, or both, that they're told you will go to counseling instead of do you want to go to counseling. And you'll see from the bar charts in there that if your agency supports you, if your partner supports you, if you don't have to be ashamed to say you're stressed out about something, those people feel 1,000% better than the others because they have some support behind them. So, let's move on to another talk, and that is, you talked about the community. So you go on these calls. Since the show's aired, what do people say to you at the hospital or in the ambulance about seeing the show? There must be some interesting comments. You got that?
In the community, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. If you're talking, people that we are responding to, they have a lot more trust in us now. Not that they didn't before, but I think now they feel as if they know us a bit personally, so they feel they can, definitely trust EMS when they call. And then, and I don't think the hospitals treat us any differently. We have a very good relationship with the nurses. We always have. Same with the doctors, which can be very different in some places. But
they haze us a little bit more. It's like, I'll kind of get your autograph type thing. But that's about the only difference we get from the hospitals.
They mess with us a lot.
Oh yeah.
Well, I had the pleasure of being at the premiere. We had a good time last year and before the series started, and there were probably an equal number of hospital staff and nurses and others that were there supporting us. So, I kind of felt that and I saw that. For our viewers, anybody who's viewing live, if you want to send in any questions, we'll try and answer them for you. You just have to hashtag JEMStalk, J-E-M-S talk, and we'll try and answer your questions. But I do have another question, and really that's maybe a little controversial, but Boston or any other big city that runs hot or red lights to the hospital, particularly if you have just a fractured leg or something like that. And I know in a high performance system you got to keep units going and on the road. So, and I know you drive cautiously, and you got those big ass growler sirens that get you through traffic. So what's your comment about that? Because I don't see it as I've been in EMS a long time, and I've run the same way when I was in a high call volume system, simply because we couldn't be tied up for an extra half hour waiting to get to the hospital. Comments, anybody?
Chief?
Carl.
Chief?
I will take that one since it's on me. Well, AJ, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you're dealing with a metropolitan system such as New Orleans, I mean, urban response is very consolidated. It's hard to get the ambulances to the hospital through traffic, and you have to utilize every resource that we have. The one thing that we preach, and these guys will tell you, is these are our greatest assets. These men and women here are our greatest assets. So we want them to drive to the hospital, but keep it slow. They don't have to blow through every light, and we just want them to be safe getting there. So that's a big proponent of what we push. I know it's a controversial thing for some, and they may not see it, but when you have limited resources, and this is all you're funded for, it's what you have to do.
Well, I got your back, and I get online. Sometimes it aggravates me when I see people taking shots, and I try not to get too aggressive. But, the reality is I tell people, if you watch the way these guys stage from dangerous scenes, they're in total tune with the police officers. You don't run excessively fast to the scenes, and certainly, particularly on Nightwatch, I mean, it's not as horrific traffic as it is during the day, but you still have to cover each other's butt and go across town. So there still has to be some things, and people, it's not like you're racing to the hospital. You're just kind of like gliding to the hospital and stopping, being cautious. If I saw people flooding through red lights, I'd be critical of you too, but I don't see that.
The main thing is we have people to protect. So, I mean, we have a lot of calls to respond to. We can't have extended times. We can't have extended delays. I mean, there are really sick people in this city. There are tragic things that happen. And, I mean, there are things that happen in this city that I feel like could potentially only happen here because it's just so bizarre. And we don't have the time to, kind of lollygag around. We have people to keep safe.
Well, and Carl, I'll put this one on you again. Your ambulances are bronze. They're pretty safe ambulances as far as I'm concerned. I've seen them being built, and I've seen the construction in and outside. You have some new ones on order. Any other changes that are going to be going on? I mean, obviously, everybody's concerned about any of us standing up in the back of an ambulance, but for the most part, on Nightwatch, you're doing your care, and then you're seated on the way to the hospital. So anything you want to say about that, Carl?
Well, we have some funding that's come through via FEMA that we had held on to. We try to go the safest route possible. Unfortunately, one of our partners just isn't ready to do that. So there will be some upgraded features with it. Some more seatbelt harnesses is what we're trying to get on the bench seat side. Some extra screens so that the guys don't have to reach across to be seated appropriately. So some things of that nature. Can't give too much away as we're still trying to build and bring in some other partners with it. But hopefully, I mean, again, we don't have a building, but we provide the safest and best equipment we can for these guys, and I think they'll attest to that.
Now, I'd be remiss if before we close here, I didn't talk a little bit about Norm McSwain. He was a friend of mine. I grew up to admire him. I was a young puppy, and he was kind of a little puppy. Qualities that he did a lot to New Orleans EMS. Any of the crews have any comments about Dr. McSwain?
He's a genius, I'll tell you that much. He's greatly missed.
He did a lot for us, but from taking care of us when we got hurt to having the sick call clinic for us to go to and our families to go to, that you didn't have to make a doctor's appointment. If you woke up sick, you could walk in. If your mom woke up sick, she could walk in. I mean, he was an amazing human being. He did a lot of amazing things for EMS.
The one thing I remember most about him, that you could just go talk to him. Like, he always made himself accessible to EMS. I mean, he always encouraged us to come talk to him and sit down and just chop it up with him. Like, we don't even have to talk about medical stuff. So he just was a big advocate for EMS, and we love him and we dearly miss him. Like, he was one of a kind.
And he was a rock star. He really was. Everywhere he went, everybody just loved and knew his history. And actually, I got to tell you, until he died, there were a lot of people who told me that they didn't know where he knew. So he came to New Orleans with a lot under his belt, and he really brought all of that to New Orleans. And he really saw you guys as his kids, and I think that's great. And honestly, there's docs that I've met in town that are maybe not Norm McSwain's, but they have that same kind of swagger, probably because he whipped them into shape. Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I can remember when I first started with the city in 2003. I remember the first room 4 I brought in the charity hospital, and it was a guy that was shot, and he ended up dying. But I remember Dr. McSwain. I didn't know him at the time. I was actually riding third with another paramedic, and he came out and hit me on the back and told me, hey, not everybody makes it, but you did a good job. And not knowing him and him not knowing me, of course, but that was something that stuck with me. There are a few people that you meet in your life that you can tell genuinely care about everybody they meet and everybody they care for, and he was one of those. And I felt honored to be able to work with him.
Well, you got in the saw him in, but every time I was in his presence, he talked about how much he left all the crews and loved New Orleans EMS. He's one of those docs that was preeminent and a great surgeon and all those other things, but he was always first and foremost a responder. So I'm sure showing up on calls and things was something that he'd give up a turkey dinner to be able to do. So you guys were very fortunate, and I'm sure that the tradition will carry on. Anybody else have anything else you want to add? I mean, the show's on next Thursday. We're all going to be glued to the TV. We're all going to be excited about it. And I'm going to sit back. I always sit back and chuckle and take my notes and watch what little comments are made and then make my little commentary on it. So beware or be happy, whatever I say, because I mean it in the best of intentions. Any closing thoughts?
AJ, we might have a little surprise for you. We did a lot of trauma calls on this season, so we might be coming for that JEMS title in Baltimore. So we want to get that Florida team and take it away from that New York team. Yeah. So hey, you never know. We might be in a JEMS game this year.
Oh, yeah, I would love to have you, and I'd love to have you back at EMS today. I'm trying to figure out ways to be able to do that, so stay tuned. and I think our audience should stay tuned.
Right.
I might have you do a couple little mini lectures or whatever, but I think that people need to see you for your clinical minds as well. So stay tuned, and I'm sure our audience will want to see as well.
AJ, if I could, I'd throw this out there as well. A lot of people, I'm sure, wonder what it's like to be on camera and live the life with your administrators and stuff watching you do what you do. Ken Bouvier likes to say that we were disciplined, and held accountable for things that we did incorrectly. But I guess conversely to that, I would like to show some love to Carl and some of our other administrators for the overwhelming support that they gave us through this, because no matter what we had going on, no matter scheduling, whatever we had in our lives that needed to be taken account for, they really helped us with scheduling. They helped us get through this whole process and just give us the support to actually make this show, and not to mention letting us be in it. So I just want to show some love for our administration that allowed us this opportunity, but also supported us through it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when I go around the country, people will say,
but people need to realize that in season 1 there was an MVC, which required extrication, and I don't know about everybody else's chief, but our chief put on his rescue gear, as he used to be a rescue medic, and cut that person out of that car. So our chief gets down and dirty with us. Right. I wonder what everybody else's chiefs do.
Well, that's true. Some of them have not been on calls in a long time. And when I go around the country, people ask about, well, how come we haven't seen Ken Bouvier on? And I said, are you kidding me? A&E had to find 150 people just to hold his pretty face back. And, the reality is, when I was at the premiere, I was teasing him. I said, are we going to see you on the show? I said, you must have been following the camera crews around. And in typical New Orleans style, he said, no, what you don't understand is they follow me around. So I think that's pretty interesting.
What is that? We got a little comment going on, a little question.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, we had somebody, I don't know where that popped in, but they said they're going to school and they wanted to know how you balance school and work. And I know, Titus, you probably had the tightest schedule with doing that. So how do you balance that? That's a lot of work.
You with me?
That's what she said.
Well, school, the way our system is set up is that it allows us to go to school. Like, for us, New Orleans EMS and our work schedule, and Delgado and them to the different EMS programs, it allows you to work, you're two on and you're two off, and your two off is the day you go to school. So every day throughout the week, you're going to be doing something, either in class, in clinical, or you're at work. So you constantly, EMS 24 hours a day, and I think that's just one of the ways that you pound it in you. So, once you get past the not sleeping part, and you're studying a lot, it goes smoothly. To me, it's a lot, but if you want it, you know what, you make do. So if it's something that you truly want, you sacrifice, the ins and outs to get what you want.
Stick with it.
Yeah, you stick with it. Now, our tweet also said that she wanted to be like Holly. So, I think that really what you've done and what Keely has done is shown, and a lot of your crews, just how aggressive, how skilled, how frontline the women are in New Orleans EMS, and we need more women involved in EMS. So you've not only been a role model as far as clinical, but you've been a role model as a woman. So anything you want to comment about that to your fellow females in EMS?
It's an honor. That's a crazy thing because, in New Orleans, I don't think it really makes a difference whether you're, a man or a woman, but obviously in other places it really does, and I've heard that a lot throughout, some of the women that I've spoke with since the premiere of the first season. And just show the guys what you're worth. You know what I mean? If I needed to kick Nick's ass, then I would just kick his ass. But you do just as good a job as anyone else, and you prove that you're just as smart as anyone else. And really, you don't need anyone's validation. If you can save a life as great as anyone else can, you need no one's validation to feel good about yourself and your job.
And you guys talked to me about the benefits of mechanical CPR. I'm a big fan of whether you're using Auto Pulse or Lucas. you know, how important is that to you to be able to have that extra machine that's really a whole bypass machine, if you will?
Well, it saves your EMT. It saves your back. You know. I mean, fire loves that. You know, when we put that Lucas on, and it's like, you know, it gives them a rest. But for us, like that, Lucas doing continuous CPR is going at the depth that it needs to go. I mean, it gives the patient the most chance of getting that perfusion going. You know, so I can't see nothing that's better than if you want to add to that. I mean, I don't know.
Clinically, it cuts down the chaos, I think. You know,
Right.
You have something that's
true.
nonstop doing CPR.
Right.
It's not something you need to monitor. It's going to be 100% effective 100% of the time, and you have more hands to direct to do other things. So clinically, I think it cuts out some of the chaos.
And statistically, you've seen some good results, and that's what people need to realize. You know, everybody thinks that they're really great at CPR, but they forget that they walk down 2 flights of stairs and across porches and, you know, all of that, and they're always interrupting CPR. At least once you get the machine on, it is on, and it's not going to falter.
I think another good point of that is it allows these professionals, these medical professionals, to concentrate on the medicine, right? When you're sitting there doing physical activity of compression over and over again, you kind of get lost and you may miss a beat. These guys concentrated, they're good, they know their protocols, but when we approach that hip crew approach, they're able to concentrate and do everything exactly as they should on each and every code the same. But again, think about those differential diagnoses that could be impacting that patient, and they do an exceptional job, and that Lucas has helped. Any mechanical CPR device would help, but you know, as chiefs, I hope people are out there looking for that for their services as well.
Yeah, and you know, there's not a lot of room in the bathroom, and there's not a lot of room in the back of a rig, so not to have a couple of extra people in there having to do compressions, I think is really an asset as well. I think we're going to pretty much close out, and I want to thank everybody for being on. I want to tell our viewers that we have special opportunities if they go and just simply text to this number, 80464, 8064. JEMS, there'll be an offer for digital or print JEMS, and we'd like you to join us. And if you want to come to EMS Today, we're going to try and drag these rascals to EMS Today and put them to work, and we'll get back to you. But this will be archived on JEMS.com, and we appreciate all of you for taking the time from your busy schedule, and good luck with the new season. We'll all be watching.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, AJ.
Peace.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, AJ.